Hi there. Today's story is one that is not, well, we're going to talk a little bit about the story and then we're going to hear the story itself. It's one that Jesus told. But first, a little bit about why he told it. Jesus spent a lot of time with a lot of different people. And some of the people he knew were people who cared a lot about God and did a lot of good things and paid attention to God. They prayed and they worshiped and they tried to do good things. They obeyed God's law. Some of them worked in the temple. Remember when he was a teenager, how he spent some time hanging out in the temple with the teachers. And even when he was a baby, Simeon and Anna had welcomed him, and they were people that were there for a long time before he was born, waiting for him. And there were a lot of people he knew as he grew up who were really good, solid people. But Jesus also cared not only about them, but also for people that didn't pay attention to God, didn't know about him, or didn't care. I mean, there are people that just don't care. And Jesus cared about people even when they didn't care about him. That's one of the great things about him. And there were people that didn't have anything to do with the temple and the way things were done there. And he spent some time with them too. He went out and he would talk with them. He would visit with them. Sometimes they'd sit down and eat together. He'd be in their houses with them sometimes, and he'd share stories with them. And they were beautiful stories. They're stories about what God is like. And that's one of the ways that he helped people to get closer to God, is by the stories that he told. Well, this confused some of the people who were in the temple all the time. And they had looked at the people that Jesus was hanging out with and they said, wait, we're not really happy about this. Because if he's hanging out with them, he must be kind of like them. And I'm not so sure that's the type of person I really ought to hang out with. And sometimes it makes sense, because sometimes you can have a friend who gets you into trouble. Sometimes some friends are really good at that. But then there are others who, they're not bad people or anything. They just don't quite get it. And Jesus wanted them to get it, if you know what I mean. He wanted to help them understand. And so, they respected him. They didn't make fun of him. They took seriously the things that he said. And in fact, instead of them getting him into trouble, he did a lot to help them get out of trouble and to see better ways of doing things. But while he was doing that, some of the other people that were around, the people that knew God and knew God's laws, and did their best to keep them, sometimes they were a little iffy, a little curious, a little suspicious of why Jesus was doing the things he was doing. And Jesus thought that he owed them an explanation of that too, because they were also his friends. And so he told them a story. He told them a bunch of stories about what would happen and why. We're going to come back to one of those tomorrow. But I wanted you to know first why Jesus would tell the story that he would tell them. Maybe you can think of it and come up with some ideas of your own and have them in mind when we get back to the story tomorrow night. I'll see you then.